Hello and welcome to another Attacking Third One Shot, where we tackle one topic in a moment that arises, whether it is breaking news or an important ongoing story, further deep dive or extension of a previous conversation. I'm Sandra Herrera alongside Christine Cupo. Today's One Shot: the NWSL announces disciplinary action against Angel City FC for salary cap violation. Let's jump in. The NWSL says that they concluded an investigation into salary cap violation by Angel City, and they are now imposing disciplinary actions based on the following findings. Based on the investigation, the league determined that Angel City violated multiple league rules, and key findings include that during the calendar year of 2023, Angel City entered into 5 side letters directly with players that affected multi-year agreements and that were not disclosed to the league. Those agreements included a combo of compensation and benefits that were reflected in the standard player agreement and access benefits that were neither reported to the league or included in said standard player agreement. So, due to those undisclosed benefits, Angel City exceeded the salary cap by approximately $50,000 for 4 weeks during the 2024 season. Due to these findings in the investigation, there have been consequences that have been issued. The following was issued to Angel City: a fine of $200,000, a suspension to Julie Ehrman, the president and CEO, and Angela Hughley's Magano, the general manager. They are suspended now, effective immediately. From conducting duties related to any player transactions for the remainder of this calendar year. And probably the biggest one here, a deduction of 3 points from Angel City's current 2024 standings, effective immediately. Christine, we're going, with this reaction here on Friday, October the 4th. This dropped yesterday, Thursday, October the 3rd. Later, and heading into the evening hours. Just your first reactions when this dropped. What were you thinking when you read some of this stuff?
I honestly I gasped because the timing of it all, right? Like everyone's been making that playoff push, everyone's been focused, and then suddenly the shoe drops. I wasn't expecting, it was not on my bingo card that Angel City would be violating salary cap rules in the latter part of this season. But also, yes, the point deduction largely jumped to mind first because they've kind of been in this position in and out all season long where it's the playoff conversation. And just as they started to seem like maybe they've turned a corner, as we know that Angel City are capable of doing, this hits. And then with it, the potential ripple effect of it, which will be, I'm sure that all of the other teams in the league are going to be audited because of some of the things that Angel City have now done. Also, the implications on the players who have to focus on things on field that wouldn't have any idea that any of this transpired behind closed doors that sort of now get robbed a bit, where it's going to be a very, very steep uphill climb to get into playoffs at this point.
Yeah, no, for sure. I think that was my reaction. I got immediately hyper fixated on the points deduction. It's like, okay, obviously this investigation, it was necessary and important. I'm not trying to like downplay it by any means, but it's like you think like this is an accounting error type of thing, and so you're like, cool, like okay, a fine, obviously, because there are certain operators within this suspensions, great. Then you see that 3 point deduction, you're like, oh, this is the thing that is we're going to see affect the players specifically. Um, we were chatting a little bit before doing this because we wanted to get our own P's and Q's in order. And you and I think both agree that like moving forward with just 4 games, including the one that's going to happen tonight against Seattle Rain, this is absolutely going to affect this team moving forward. And mathematically speaking, even though we don't always do the math sometimes, like mathematically speaking, here they're not dead in the water, but it's almost like the grave has certainly been dug for Angel City
Absolutely.
as far as
They're
this.
they're out and they're hoping for a life raft and
Oh,
they're trying to pedal to shore because maximum points that they can pick up at this point would be 12. That would be the ideal. That's picking up 3 points every single match. I don't think that's realistic at this point. And everyone else that's sort of sitting in that conversation, Louisville, um, still got Bay in contention
Yeah.
there, that really are sort of, I feel like, coming into what they should have been looking like all season.
Yeah.
It's kind of brutal to see that that's sort of the pipe that you're looking down at.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think again in my reaction, I was like, well, effective immediately. Let's see how this, reflects those standings. And at one point, we're talking an Angel City side that had been fluctuating like between like 9 and 10, right? Just trying to chase that playoff line at 8 with and having 22 points. But now this deduction takes them to 19 points and they're in 12th on the table. So it's even further. And I think that's what I'm alluding to, where I'm just like, they're not necessarily dead, but that the hole is there. Uh
Right.
because it's like now you're not just trying to claw to that playoff line. You've got teams in front of you, and at this point it really feels like the season has kind of been taken out of their hands. And there was a little bit of that last week, honestly, Cooper, with that loss against the Spirit. We saw it in the body language a little bit. They were disappointed to have not walked away with that with any points after going up and having the lead. But it makes tonight's game against Seattle Reign almost feel even heavier, if you can imagine, because this is a team that it was also it is in a similar situation as Angel City, where they have this combination of that they need to go on an incredible run and they need a little bit of help in front of them, and it's almost like this point deduction has by extension helped out the potential prospects of Seattle Reign, making their own respective run. So I just am kind of like, what do we even potentially see tonight between these two teams?
I think we're either going to see the pressure form a diamond for one of them, or they're gonna buckle underneath it. Obviously, Angel City had already felt the pressure to perform and sort of get themselves right for playoffs, and now it's doubly so, and they're working at a disadvantage. So we're gonna see how much pain,
Yeah,
emotionally, mentally, physically, they're gonna be able to sustain, trying to carve their way back up into playoffs. It's
yeah.
obviously not out of the question, but it will be remarkable if they can manage to do that at this point, in my
Yeah.
opinion.
No, for sure. I'm with you 100%. Something I think important that you touched on too, and like your first reactions of seeing all of this, was that within that news release that dropped, along with the investigation that was conducted, the findings that they discovered, and then the consequences that were issues, they also said, hey, by adjacent consequences to this is the fact that the league is going to continue to conduct annual investigations and audits of player spending, specifically player spending across clubs, to ensure that there's compliance with those league rules. And a couple of things I think peek out here in that little phrasing. It's like, number one, it's like, are you implying that like this wasn't taking place already to begin with across the league? Number one, and number two, Kubo, I think it's like, who is a likely candidate for something else to come out here? What do you think moving forward?
Yeah, I obviously they're going to perform audits. I think it's good that they're doing this because procedurally it shows that the league is absolutely serious about its business affairs. I think that they're taking it more seriously than some of the more established men's league that we've seen, clubs blow through FFP rules like they are like at a drive-through. I just think like, what comes down to it, and obviously there's gonna be, like, that like, petty hater side of it that fans are gonna be chirping at each other, and I think, everybody's gonna be hollering already on the internet about, like, "Hey, look at Gotham. How do they have all these players?" "Where's the salary cap there?" I think it's gonna be a little bit of that. I think that obviously they need to go through these things with a fine tooth comb because everybody needs to be on the level. NWSL is a respected league, and if we've learned anything over the last few seasons, especially, um, they continue to refine and move accordingly. I think these are all good problems to have, right? You want to
Yeah,
have a heavy administrative hand, but where it makes sense, right? I think of the sort of punishments handed down. Um, for me, the point deduction was the most significant.
yeah,
$200,000, that's it's pocket change. The remainder of the season suspensions for Julie Ehrman and
right,
Angela Hookless Mangano, it's a few months. You're literally taking a break from doing business transactions for 3 months. That's nothing.
right.
But I mean, the implications for the league more broadly, yes, I think that I would be looking very closely at my accountant and making sure that we're super tidy.
Yeah, no, 100%. I think there's layers to that too, right? That's the other layer that comes with it. I think when I saw this last night too, there was a little bit of like, wow, the league's first kind of public, salary cap violation. Like, we made it? Question mark. Like,
Yeah, baby, we're no longer in harassment. We're into money laundering.
it's yes, it's like, oh goodness, it's just like, I don't, it's like, how do we actually feel about this? And I think there's an angle of that too, like maybe folks who find themselves just viewers of like women's soccer, they find themselves invested in just this side of the sport. This is not something that we have heard about often, and I think for folks who are just kind of like, what does it all mean? Just understand that it's like a very serious thing that happened. I don't think it should be downplayed. And that's part of, I think, with these consequences that we've seen, the discipline that's been issued, that's part of the messaging, that it's like, this is a very serious thing that occurred. And therefore, here are some very serious consequences that the club has been handed because of that. So there's definitely that layer as well. I think there's all of it. There's folks who are going to be like, 50K because of 5 side deals. Like, everybody does that. And like, that's also kind of
Mhm.
like a little bit disturbing as well. There's like some Spider-Man memeing going on
Yeah,
here where it's just like, well, everybody does it. Like, why is Angel City getting punished? And that's really kind of tough to take a look at and see like, oh, that's
it is
interesting
because,
reaction.
the number of businesses, this is even outside of soccer or NWSL, that loophole things because you can creatively loophole. You have deductions and things that you can manage. Unfortunately, when you're towing that line, the gray area isn't as gray as you think it is, and you cross into dark, dark territory very quickly, and you find yourself caught up in all of this. So it's just kind of interesting. And I see you all in the chat. Like, yes, audits should be performed annually, number one, as a basis for any business transactions. And these should be ongoing for each and every team, especially as they do business, just player transactions and like trades. That aside, the fact that they have to loop back, now I give them credit for some timeliness. Granted, some of these infractions occurred in 23. I think if they could speed up some of their audits, I would be even more pleased with that, just so that these punishments and or implications happen earlier in the season and they're addressed ahead of I mean this point. This point I
Yeah.
feel like it impedes the players more so than anyone else, and
Yeah.
that's evident. As I already mentioned, a 200K fine is pocket
Yeah.
change, and 3 months of not doing business transactions is like, "Thank you, I'm gonna go sit on the beach."
Yes, I think that like, as far as like the discipline, that you feel the effect of that immediately, 100%. It's the 3-point deduction that is coming this season for this team. Yes, you said shout out to the chat. I will also shout out to the chat because our beloved Lisa Carlin is in the chat as well, like wanting to make sure that she's up to speed on all things Angel City and the disciplinary actions that have been handed down. She's asking in the chat, she's also like, how much of this is going to be connected to the recent sale of Angel City to Willow Bay and Bob Iger? Look, I think it's going to be significant. I think the benefit here is that that has already been finalized. They will be, Willow Bay is connected to Angel City. Willow Bay is Angel City. Angel City is Willow Bay. Like, that is done and dusted moving forward. But it's gonna be tough moving forward as far as like, what does some of those executive positions look like moving forward, as now this new sort of influx of money comes in. Like, do we see these two members, the club president, the CEO club president, and the general manager with this club moving forward?
Yeah, I mean, here's the thing, and I see all the comments about, money and all of that. This is a reality more broadly in football business. Every single league has seen this issue where you have an increase in spending, increase in investment. These are all good things. This is especially good for NWSL. We want that. We want more investment, more money, because what happens is one side of it is sports business, the other side is the beating heart of our game, which is the game that we all love.
Yeah.
And you need one and you need the other to
Yep.
continue to be able to grow the game. These are all great. The problems that we can learn from, especially for NWSL, are out there. You see it. in Premier League, in leagues that have shuttered, in leagues that continue to have spending issues, in leagues that are trying to compete just based on the cash flow alone, that will never sustain anything, but it will create more problems. We know what you're looking down the road to. As the salary caps start to get blasted, and we've seen it happen again and again and again. This is the first instance we're really seeing this in a high profile way in NWSL. They need to have all of the administrative bodies in place to mitigate it, and they do. So it's great that they're already ahead of this. I think these are all positives, but I do think that as it continues to grow, there's going to be new levers pulled to try to get an edge, and they're going to have to mitigate those. I mean, that's the bottom line of it. It's business and play.
Yep. Yeah. No, that's again, that was part of my reactions where I'm just like, the league has made it. Like we have like this first, salary cap violation. And that's what it means. That's part of what this investigation means, that there's a salary cap in play. There's rules in within the bylaws of this league. And an investigation like that shows that a team was not in compliance. And because of that, discipline was issued. So this is obviously going to be an ongoing story because, again, within that, we touch on the fact that more teams will continue to be audited. I think that there has been a lot of, again, reaction to this on the good, grand internet. And folks out there are joking about their own clubs. And I got to say, like, if you're already making jokes and poking fun at like your own club, I see people saying like the Spirit are next, Gotham are next, the Current are next. And I'm just like, well, if you're throwing them out there, I guess let's just continue to sort of be seated and take it all in. But that was it for today's Attacking Third One Shot. Thanks everybody for joining us. We will be back in studio on Monday to bring you all the latest surrounding the women's game, including a recap of all things NWSL action. Make sure you go ahead and follow Attacking Third wherever you get your podcasts and leave us a 5-star rating and review. We're also available on youtube.com/Attacking Third. Catch us on the CBS Sports Golazo Network for all of your women's football coverage. For Mark, Sandra, Christine, this was Attacking Third.